Welcome back to another Women in Puppetry interview. This is our last episode with Jamie Donmoyer. It's a little bit longer than some of the other episodes that I've put out because just the way that all of her projects, the many various projects that she worked on, interlocked into each other and became what she does today with Michellee Puppets was really kind of fascinating. So I didn't know what to cut. And so it ended up being what it is. And I hope you enjoy and are inspired as I was. So here it is, our final episode of our interview with Jamie Donmoyer.
But that was really cool. That was my first time that I was, and they had like Fraggles there, and I was like, I'm gonna put on a Fraggle.
Awesome.
I was so distracted by putting on a Fraggle, I could not focus on what I was supposed to be doing. Of course.
I have a Fraggle on my hand.
I know. That was like, and that was a long time. You know, that was a long time. That was the first time I met Leslie Carrera Rudolph.
Oh.
She was at that workshop, and I think they were preparing her for Muppets Tonight or something. It was right around the Muppets Tonight time.
Sure.
And she was there, and I remember her. She was like, you know, talking, and I was like, this person is so interesting. I was like, who is this person, you know? And I just loved listening to her, and I was like, oh, this person's hilarious. Mm-hmm. So she ended up coming to Orlando to do Animal Jam sometime in the early 2000s, maybe late 1990s. And so I met her again there, and because they were filming at Disney right next door to where I was working, like at Bear at the Big Blue House. So I went over and watched them film because John Tartaglia was in that show. So he was like, hey, come over. And that's where I met John Kennedy and I met Leslie. And then years later, I want to say it was probably 2007 or 2008, I got a phone call to be one of the performers on Johnny and the Sprites, which was really cool. Yeah. And then that's when I went in there and it was Leslie as one of the main performers, and I was like, I reminded her, I was like, you know, we've met here, you know, whatever. And it was really cool because Carmen Osbar was working on that show as well, and she'd been Kiki in Puzzle Place, which I had obsessively watched with John, like as kids. You know, I was like, oh, Kiki, she's so funny. Like her delivery, I would listen and be like, okay, why is it funny? You know, like what about her delivery is funny? What is she doing? Why is her voice so clear? What is she doing with her mouth? You know, and all this. So she was one of the performers on Johnny and the Sprites, and it was like I was surrounded by these people that I considered to be like amazing performers, the giants in the world. It was like Tim Lagasse and Leslie Carrera Rudolph and Carmen Osbar, and then and Heather Ashe and Jen Barnhart was there on and off, and Lisa Buckley and Jim Krupa was the puppet lead on that, and I was like, what am I doing here? I was like, happening? How am I doing this? So I'm the full time. This was on the second season. I had worked one day on the first season, and so I was brought in as the full time sort of like assist for the second season. And I was one day. It was probably about a week or two into shooting. John comes to me really quickly, and he's like, "Hey, tomorrow you're going to be the frog." And I was like, what frog? So I looked at the script and I was like, okay, the frog doesn't have any lines. It says frog reacts or something like that. And I was like, okay. So I stayed up all night trying out different types of rivets and, you know, all sorts of frog type sounds. I was panicked. I didn't get any sleep. And so I was like, I come in the next day and they're like, okay, we're going to give you the frog. And I'm like, okay. And the writer runs up to me, like, we're about 30 seconds from shooting. And the writer runs up to me and he goes, well, this is a tree frog, so it doesn't say rivet. And I was like, whoa, what am I going to do? I was like, I don't know what it says then. I was like, okay. And he goes, it says, how would you say Yuhreep? And I was like, Yureep? He was like, perfect. I was like, that was not perfect. So there was nothing perfect about that. So I'm about to shoot this scene, and I'm shooting with Carmen because it's like her pet, her character's pet.
Right.
And I'm like, because Carmen's so good, like, I'm going to look really bad if, you know, I can't get this together.
Yeah.
So Leslie's under the stage with me, and I'm like, Leslie, Leslie, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I was like, I had a completely different idea. The writer just came over and said, I need to do this. She's like, all right, what does a tree frog sound like? So we started making all of these crazy sounds under this like forest of like stuff. And then we're like, trying to do all things. And it was like, you know, it was like this. And I was like, that sounds terrible. So I was trying to push it, you know, and it came out as like this little like trill sound thing. I was like, this is not a good sound. And then they go, okay, we're shooting. And I'm like, ah! So I got stuck in this voice, which, you know, all the characters that I do, I got stuck in this voice and I was like, this is not what I intended to do, but this is what it is. And then all of a sudden the character started showing up and they did a whole episode about the character. I was like, well, it's just going to sound like this. So I kept trying to develop as I went along, you know, but I stayed on the set the entire time. I never really went to the green room if they were shooting. I stayed on that set the entire time because I got Tim Lagasse, like Mr. Master of the Monitor, you know, he knows how to do things. He directs that stuff. It's like, I'm going to go sit in the green room while he's performing. I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, Carmen with all of her stuff and Leslie would do the most hilarious, like, she would just turn that character and then just, it'd be funny. And then she would crank it and just we spent one night, we were up till, I think 2 a.m. We had to shoot this thing and we were shooting till like 2 or something. And it made her funnier. Like the longer we went and she kept saying, and she would hold out these words in weird places. And I would be like, that is so funny, you know? So we would just crack up. And I overheard her in the green room talking about how she did live shows. So in 2005, I was pregnant with my daughter. I had a lot of energy, and I was working on different shows, flying out to Oklahoma to do stuff, and doing all sorts of stuff all around. And Paul Zaloom was coming to town, and Heather Henson lived in Orlando at the time, and we knew each other from the Puppet Guild. I had actually met her in like 1995 at a puppet festival in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, which was hilarious because she and her mom were there, Jane, were there, and I was like some 15-year-old kid or something really wanting to get into the world of television puppetry, and John Tartaglia came to that one as well with me. We were together at the festival. We're sitting at the table eating. We're just talking to the people that we're sitting with like you do at a Puppeteers of America festival. And all of a sudden John grabs my leg and he's like, that's Jane Henson. And I was like, because she was somebody that I really admired.
Right.
And I was just like, I didn't know what to say. I turned into a babbling idiot at that point. We'd had a very eloquent conversation. It was fine. And then when I realized who she was, I just panicked, you know? Yeah. So like then later that night, Heather had joined her. And so I ran into her because she had a RISD sweatshirt. And she'd gone to RISD, and I had been considering RISD as one because it had a puppetry program as well. I considered it for college. I was talking to her about it, and then I didn't realize who she was, and then I then found out who she was. Oh my gosh, I was a mess. But then we became friends. You know, she came to Sesame Place to see performances and stuff, and when she moved to Orlando, we reconnected, and Paul Zaloom was coming to town, and we wanted to present him. In Orlando, really there was no presenting theater at the time. It was like places were all producing theaters. So we were trying to figure out how can we get him to come to Orlando, because places would tour everywhere and we would never get to see their shows. So we talked to Mad Cow Theater, Mitzi Maxwell, and we said, okay, Mitzi, how can we do this? Because they had Joe Kishore, who's a marionettist. A year before I had seen them, I was like, oh, we should go to Mad Cow because they know puppets, quality puppets. So we started the Orlando Puppet Festival based on Paul Zaloom performing. Philip Huber was doing cruise ships at the time. He happened to be getting off of a cruise ship. So he came and performed. We had some local, the Silsons, Scott and James Silson, had just done a show for the Fringe Festival. We had them do that. So we made a little festival out of it in 2005, and it became very popular. So we did it every year. And so fast forward to when I'm in the green room at Johnny and the Sprites, and Leslie said she had a show, and I was like, you have a show? I was like, I've already seen how hilarious you are. She's like, oh, well, I'm just trying to figure it out, and all this. I did it in my hometown, and I'd love to be able to perform it more. I was like, I have a festival. I was like, come to Orlando and perform. We became friends, which was great. That was one of the best things that I took out of Johnny and the Sprites, besides all of the education how to perform on camera, especially with those little rigged characters that Jim Krupa would design. And I was like, these are so tiny, I have to be so intricate with it, and but I also had a lot of fun because Lisa Buckley was also doing assisting for that show, and she's got a great history in performing on camera and all over. She does a lot of things with no strings and stuff. She and I would just sit in the background, and we got to do all the little fuzzy characters that they had, and we would just laugh and do ridiculous background stuff. And then once I did Johnny and the Sprites, I had a lot more confidence. I had really trained with some great people, and I knew what I was lacking in some ways, so I was like, okay, I need to know how to do this, I need to practice this more, my characters need to be a little clearer, they need to, I need to be prepared to do a frog on the fly, that kind of stuff. Like, you need to know what you're doing. I was part-time at Disney. I went part-time, and I had worked at Pinocchio's Marionette Theater, which was at the time just starting, and I had done some marionette work, but I had also worked in the front of the house doing planning events and stuff like that for them. So we would have guest artists and stuff, and that's kind of what started to lead to the Puppet Festival as well. And I also did something I called it the Potpourri of Puppetry, because I had seen on at the puppet festivals, they always did potpourri, so anybody could just go up and have 5 minutes and do whatever they wanted. And I was in the green room at the time with a bunch of Disney people, and they were like, I have all these ideas for shows, but I don't have anywhere to perform it. So it's like, I'm gonna do that. So 2002, I did the first Potpourri of Puppetry, and then I would continue it each year. And my friends would just come up with ridiculous skits to do. And but I also had worked with the City of Orlando Puppet Troupe, and that was a place where I got to write shows for the first time for other people to perform.
That's cool.
And so I'd write some shows, and we would pre-record the track, and we would build the puppets, and we'd do all that for like a summer. I would do it throughout the year, and then we would perform them in the summer. And so that was cool, because I also got to do my teaching with the puppet troupe. So my mom was an elementary school teacher, so as a kid, being interested in puppets, my mom was like, come into my classroom and teach the kids how to do it. And then the teacher across the hall would say, come into my classroom. So I learned about curriculum and the things that they need, and I would teach them through puppetry, because I wasn't diagnosed as a kid, but I had ADHD and I didn't know. And so I had a lot of trouble learning. So I would go home and I would use my puppets and like act out scenes from history, or I would make little paper cut things, and I would teach myself how to do things, because I was so challenged in what I was doing. So I used the puppets for that. So that helped me at least get into college.
Yeah.
Even though the college was for puppetry, I used puppetry to get into puppetry college.
Yeah.
I would work with Heather a lot, and we would do, one of the things they had asked her to do was the Muppet movie sing-along. They were showing the Muppet movie in Winter Park, and as like an outdoor event, and she was like, what can we do? She's like, they want to have some sort of interactive element. I was like, we should make it a sing-along.
Yeah.
And so we stayed up all night, and we came up with these prop bags that people could have. We're like, oh, they could do this, and they could do that. She's like, we need a craft where they can make something. So we started making like Kermit collars and, doing all this crazy stuff, trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're like, oh, we'll get a Gonzo and he'll be on balloons. And, we just had fun, like, making that happen. And they still do that today. Obviously, they have revved it up quite a bit. And it's a full production, and they've got things on stage and costumes and stuff. But it just started from this one idea of like, let's do a sing along, and it was fun. We were just doing fun stuff. And then we stopped doing the Puppet Festival right around 2009, 2010. And Heather was off doing her stuff. She loved doing her environmental spectacles and stuff like that. And I was doing my stuff, and sometimes going out of town to do some sort of video something or whatever. So I realized I have my daughter. I need to stay in town, and I need to be able to do something focused. And Tracy from Michellee Puppets had said, hey, we're going to shoot this video. Do you want to help write it? I was like, sure. So it was for Florida Hospital. It was called the Creation Health. It's Go Team Creation is what it's called. So she and I sat down, and we were like, okay, what's this going to be about? And Florida Hospital is like a Christian organization. And so they have this this creation. It's so funny. I've worked on Puppetry Island, which was Christian, and this, and I'm Jewish, and whatever. But creation is like an acronym, so it's like right up on that wall, actually.
Oh, okay.
Which you guys can't see, but
we'll just like it's up there.
So these are the sets from that.
Oh, cool.
And so it's an acronym, and it's choice, rest, environment, and all that kind of stuff. And so we wrote an episode for each letter. So I was like, how am I going to do this? And so Tracy and I were brainstorming, and then it was like, ooh, it could be kids, and they found a clubhouse, and they, it's written on the wall, and it becomes a mystery. Nice. So this was, I had written some little video type things before, but this was the first time that I was actually writing something that was like going to be a full story. And that I was really excited because I got to design the puppets, those characters over there. We've got Gabby and Freddie, and then Oliver over here. Cool. And so I got to design the characters and build them and write the scripts. And so it was exciting because they then gave the scripts to Set Builder, who built like these amazing sets, which was just what I had thought in my brain, which was so cool. I was like, wow, and this was in my brain, and now it's right in front of me. That was really cool. I was like, ooh, and I built the puppets, and I was like, who are we gonna get to perform these? I was like, what's our budget? So we were able to get John Kennedy and Leslie Carrera Rudolph to come and perform. Oh, wow. Leslie did Gabby, and then John did Oliver, and I did Freddie. Okay. And so the three of us are just performing, and it was really fun. I was like, this is really cool. And I'd always loved Michellee Puppets' message idea, where they are empowering lives through the art of puppetry. So I was like, when I do stuff, I like to perform, and do things that have some sort of purpose. They are effective, not just like stupid, like, hey, I'm gonna hit myself in the head with a hammer thing. Like it's entertaining, but it's not where my interest lies. Right. I like to do things that have some sort of heart behind it, some sort of mission. Yeah. So I worked with them just as a contracted person, just to write these shows or these videos, and then we performed them, and then that was over. And I really needed, to get. I was working seasonally in different areas. I performed the puppet character and I still do, for Sunrail was coming, and they needed a Sunrail, the squirrel character named Ty, and so I was performing that and doing a lot of promotion things for that. We did some videos for that, and I was doing a bunch of little things. So Tracy ended up getting a grant. I want to say it was maybe 3 years ago, and she was like, "Do you want to come and work with us full time as a production manager?" And I was like, okay, let's do that, because I was already performing with them on occasion for their bully prevention shows and stuff. And so I think this was about 3 years ago, and I've been doing that, and we've done a lot of videos, and I get to basically do everything that I do. I get to teach, I get to do videos, I get to write shows, I get to direct, I get to do all the things that I have experience in, or which in other places it'd be like, well, you can get a job here. This is your experience, Right. But here it's perfect, and I get to do all sorts of fun things, and come up with creative ideas and be constantly creative, which is really fun. Yeah. And then make an impact as well. Right. Do stuff on bully prevention and like we've done shows in the past about domestic violence, and we do health and wellness and reading and all sorts of things, like literacy and stuff that people need. So that's been fun. I've been doing a lot of that. And that's sort of where I came to now. And then the other really fun thing that I do is work with Leslie. We do a podcast together, Lolly's Radio Playdate. And we just sit on the phone and just come up with whatever the idea is going to be. If there's some sort of a holiday theme, we go around that, or time of year or whatever it is. But we just sort of like explore what Lolly's world is and kind of develop it and bring it to life, so cool. which is really fun. Yeah. Awesome. Wow. It's so much good stuff. It's a lot. It is. Editing quite a bit.
Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be great. No, I love hearing people's paths and finding how each thing kind of connected to the next thing. And I think that's interesting. What advice would you give to new puppeteers or to puppeteers who want to do more with just the art form?
I would say, Puppeteers of America festivals are great places to learn. Really, people are so welcoming. When I went to my first festival, I was like a kid, and they were like, come sit with me and let me talk to you about this thing. And, I was sitting with Jane Henson at a festival just chatting it up, It was
Sure.
like, there's no stars there. Nobody's like off limits, you know? Just go and you sit and you eat with people and you talk with them, and then you go and watch shows and see what inspires you. I saw a show at a festival. David Simpich was performing in Bryn Mawr in like 1995, and I was still a teenager, and the amount of voices that he could do, I was just blown away. His puppets were beautiful. He comes from like a doll maker's family, and I just thought, whoa, okay, that guy knows what he's doing, and so I was able to just talk to him the next day about it, which was exciting. I think also it's important to understand that there's a lot of that. It's going to take time. You have to build up muscles. You really need to take the time to learn what you don't know.
Right.
Walking in and thinking, oh, well, I know everything. You're not going to learn anything,
No.
You need to understand that everybody has a different approach, but there are some basic mechanics that are going to help you along the way.
Sure.
You cannot be perfect right away.
Right.
It's impossible. You don't have the muscles developed yet. So it's like really focus on learning from other people. Watch, if you want to do television puppetry, watch television puppetry. Watch what they're doing. Try to figure that out, But get in front of a camera yourself and do a side-by-side comparison. I mean, there's so much available now to be able to do video puppetry on your own.
Thanks for watching Women in Puppetry interviews. Check the description below for more information and videos and cool stuff. Thanks.